Nigeria is a nation with immense potential that has yet to be fully realized. Between 2015 and 2024, for example, our real GDP growth lightly stagnated and per capita income contracted, eroding living standards. During this period, millions of Nigerians were pushed into poverty, squeezed by persistent high inflation, rising unemployment and underemployment, even as 3 to 5 million young people entered the labor market annually while job creation lagged. The Human Capital Index, which is a measure of the future productivity of today's children, remains among the lowest in the world, with the most recent index suggesting that a child born in Nigeria in 2020 can expect to reach only about 36% of his or her productive potential, given current education and health outcomes. Today, roughly 40% of Nigerians, some 89 million people, are estimated to live below the poverty line. This is the second largest, assuming those numbers are correct, this is the second largest population of people in poverty worldwide after India.
Welcome back. And so that very unsettling submission by former head of the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, Mr. Yemi Kale, sets the tone for our first conversation this morning. And, you know, to help us, of course, we have Dr. Tope Fasua, who's the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on economic affairs. He joins us right here in our Abuja studio. Good morning, Dr. Fasua. Thank you.
Good morning, and thanks for the invite
on the program. And so Dr. Yemi Kale is a former Director General of the National Bureau of Statistics, and in fact, under his watch, there was a GDP rebasing, and Nigeria was adjudged to be the largest economy in Africa. So one cannot ignore, you know, when he gives out data, and he's currently chief economist at the Afrexim Bank. So 89 million people out of poverty, living below the poverty line, and representing 40% of the population. This, you know, goes in contrast with the strides that the administration is reporting. How do you respond to such statistics?
Well, thank you very much. Of course, as he said himself, he said, if you believe the numbers, he's an experienced statistician. He understands where the booby traps are, you know, because when he said that, I've also done a bit of research, and I wonder where he got the number from. But many times statisticians work with estimates. So you can take in there, because just this morning, if anyone goes to what they call the World Poverty Index, which is the worldpoverty.io, you see that against Nigeria is listed 71 million people, not 85 million people, not 80 million people. And in fact, I remember that when the World Poverty Index started about 5, 6, 7 years ago, we had about 76 million people there. So, in fact, it was surprising to me, and, well, not so surprising to me, because I have my own data, research, opinion about what's going on. But even on the World Poverty Index, the number of poor people in Nigeria has reduced. You know, that's the extremely poor people in Nigeria has reduced. You know, so that's remarkable. And you ask if, how does that jive with the current rhetoric and current narrative of government? You know, I mean, of course, we understand that contrary to people who will come and say, you know what, people are hungry, let's share all the money, let's give them money on the streets and all of that. The current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying that, look, we are not going to really be sharing money. We want to do something that takes us on a different trajectory, that paints a new picture, that prepares you know, even our children and unborn children for a better life than what we have had. Even though it must be said also, for those who try to compare Nigeria to 1960, that in many ways we are living a better life now than used to be the case. That's the truth, you know. In 1960, just after independence, we had a whole lot of people, of course, living in villages and so on. It was when we took over government as as nationals ourselves, that people started moving from villages to Lagos, to Ibadan, to Kaduna, to Enugu, and all of that. And then that created a kind of urban poverty. Because people found themselves in those cities and they were out of sorts as to what to do and what to. So anyhow, now the focus of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not only to tackle the poverty issue, which is historical, like I've said. Part of it is historical. Part of it is, this is where we find ourselves. There are families who have been in generational poverty, but many times also, how do we get them to take different decisions? There are people who have children today and say, okay, you know what, we don't want them to go to school because I didn't go to school, so why would they go to school and all of that? And then that becomes a generational issue, people recreating themselves, people believing that they have generational curse, for example, is a curse against us, we're not going to live. And of course, if you have 100 people in the room and 10 people are poor and hungry, the voices of the 10 people are going to drown the remaining 90 people. What we're doing since President Tinubu came is to have a tectonic shift in the way people think, tectonic shift in the way the government operates, and you can see that from President Tinubu's last independence speech. I mean, how can someone roll out all those indices about positives going on in the economy, in the GDP, in the revenue collection, in what have you, in the trade balances of the country, in revenue generation, in the health sector, in humanitarian services, and of course, people will still come and say, is that what we're going to eat? Now, people should try, including I've heard professors saying that, is that what we're going to eat? Fine, people should learn not to think only about themselves. Because if we are saying that you want to have a better country, it had better be good and better for majority of the people. But if you're saying you yourself, you think that you are poorer today than you were a few years ago, and then that means that nothing is being achieved, you are wrong, And again, so what the reforms of government has done is to say there are new opportunities for people to get involved, to reposition, even the investment in infrastructure, for example, roads, bridges, and co, that people criticize. What the third most important need of human beings after food and shelter, and clothing, is transportation, mobility. People need to be able to live where they are, to go to where they can find a job. If there's a construction site, you should try, maybe you are selling the sand or selling the cement or offering labor. These things are there. And so, but for somebody who has decided that, look, I don't want to get involved, this country is this country is that, this is what you're going to get. So, but the government, I mean, like Chinua Achebe said, as he wrote, that they went, since a naked bird said that since human beings have learned to shoot without missing, it too will fly without perching. As much as people are very critical of government, no matter what you do, if you build infrastructure, you say, why are you building infrastructure? If you don't build, they say, why are you not building infrastructure? And, so the government too, we have learned that, look, we must continually communicate what we're doing and highlight the good sides of the achievements of government. And we must be constant about it. We must be unrelenting about it. And that's why I'm here. And that's why, even though I'm an advisor on economy, you see that every time you call me to come and communicate the achievement of this government, I understand very, very much the power of the media, including social media, including traditional media as we're on today. I understand the power of communicating these issues, because if we don't, nobody will sing our praises for us.
Well, so many things have come through from what you have said. First of all, the people reserve the right to question what government is doing.
Absolutely.
Because in this case, they are the employer of the employed. That would be the elected and appointed. And you also talked about data. The data put out by Dr. Kale may have been, good for the administration when you consider other figures put out by international institutions, which actually put poverty rates between 47 and 56% from about the last quarter of 2024. I know that the data can be questioned, but even the NBS data, the current NBS data would show that poverty is higher than the 40% submitted by the administration. But Dr. Kale also spoke to some very important issues. He talked about social safety nets. Now, if indeed the administration's humanitarian ministry is effective in the schemes and the programs, in the last 2 years of this government, shouldn't this figure have gone down even more significantly when you consider the distribution of 25,000 naira, to vulnerable households, 75,000 naira. That's on the one hand.
Yes.
On the other hand, does it not also show that grants are not effective in effectively transforming people and taking them out of poverty?
Right. So you know what? Anyone that seeks the mandate of the people to govern, to lead, as especially a president, you take on a burden. And I'm glad Mr. President has always said, please don't pity me. I know what I took on. Sometimes it's a poison chalice. You're better off being on the other side, criticizing and pointing fingers, than offering yourself to. I mean, it's a huge burden. Sometimes I wonder why people do it, and even though I've done that myself in the past, in 2019. But sometimes we're looking back and thinking, look, what was I thinking, So that's it. For one, anybody that says is going to do that, you inherit all of this problem. People are going to come after you. So you have said that, why if the humanitarian ministry is doing what it's supposed to do and sharing this money, 25,000, 75,000, we're not supposed to be here. Number one is that 25,000 will not take anybody out of poverty. It's just money to feed, to tide over till a certain point in time. That's why, more and more. However, you'll also realize that we get being pushed in that direction, especially by even many international agencies. The IMF, the World Bank will come and say, you know what, we want to give you money to go and share to people. Mr. Kunjawala was here, who's also very experienced and worked in this country 12 years as Minister of Finance. He also said that, social services, you're not giving money to the people. Now, so the thing is this, that look, the government understands that we need to give money to some people, but we will not be pushed in that direction of just going to share all the money. Infrastructure also matters. You mentioned humanitarian services, but the thing about humanitarian services is that it's not just about the money that's shared. I mean, Minister of Finance, Coordinating Minister of the Economy, said 330 billion has been shared, even though the Minister of Humanitarian, his own figure is about 420 billion. So there's some sort of, that needs to be sorted there. But however, these numbers are there, being pushed out. But when you talk about humanitarian, infrastructure also comes into place. For example, I keep giving an example of places like the Nembe Brass Road. The Nembe Brass Road, many years ago, Rex Jim Lawson sang a song and talked about how, he will use canoe to go to Nembe. That had been there since the time of 1960s when Rex Lawson was singing that song, up to recently when the road and bridges that linked the Nembe to the mainland of Rivers State has now been commissioned and all of that is in use. Go to Taraba State, many parts of Taraba are still till today. And that's one of our most beautiful terrains, cut off from the rest of Nigeria. So every time you do an infrastructure that makes it easy for people to move around, or you invest in hospitals, in schools and all of that, you are actually impacting on that humanitarian factor. For example, under Minister Pate, about 4,000 primary health centers have been refurbished. There have been provisions, about 4 million free deliveries have been made for women. About 6,000 free cesarean sections have been performed in that ministry alone. What that does is it frees up money that people would have to start looking up and down for money. I mean, to deliver a child in the US, if you were not on insurance, even if you're on insurance, a normal delivery is at least $16,000. You go to Kuba General Hospital here, people do that for 5,000 naira, even less. And we have been doing this consistently for over so many periods of time. Equally, infrastructure, spending on education, for example, more than 100 billion naira has been spent on NEL fund. I understand that if a student applies in year 4, that NEL fund will not only pay your school fees for year 4, including giving you pocket money, it will pay your school fees for the past 3 years that you have been paying. That is money in people's pocket that people are not emphasizing this. So again, the point is this. We understand that if we don't say it and blow our trumpet, nobody will. Mr. President has eloquently blown the trumpet on October 1st, and for the first time people were shocked. But then again, it riles some people because, unfortunately, some people don't want to hear anything good about Nigeria, but this country is making progress. On the trade side, people are making money, exporters are making money, people are doing well. Manufacturing export grew quarter to quarter, 173%, year on year, 67% against last year. Something is happening. People are better paid attention. But for those who are positive, take advantage, reposition, do your networking, you know, speak up, you know, get involved, write a proposal. And you can do that a lot with artificial intelligence these days. Things are changing. In fact, there's one gentleman, a very young person, who does graphic for me. I've never seen him before, but I know how much I've paid him in the last maybe one month or 2 months. I didn't know that he was only just going for youth service. He just called me a few days ago that, they called him for camp. I said, well, I thought that you were a staff. I don't know where he lives, somewhere in Jos. I've never seen him before. So these are young people. Will they tell you that they are making money? There are many young Nigerians are working remotely presently for the United States, in the United States, in the UK and everything. They're making them. Some of them are getting paid by cryptocurrency. None of them are earning good amount of dollars. They won't speak. So one thing we have also realized, you know, the cognitive dissonance, the fact that only people who are on the wrong side of things, but I'm noting the fact that no policy will benefit everybody, number one. Number two, that there's no country in the world where everybody will be rich. So sometimes I hear Nigerians saying that, oh, just because we have oil, everybody should be enjoying in this country. There's no country in the world where everybody is enjoying. It's what you do that you get. So let's push more people to be able to do what is productive. What we want to do is to increase our productivity. And you see that 4.323% that you've seen, the target is double digit. We are going to ensure, by God's grace, we take that into 8%, to 9%, to 10%, to 12%. Under this administration, I think it's doable. So let's just stay positive. Really.
At the heart of it is the realities on ground as against, you know, the reforms that are ongoing. You talked about the rehabilitation of primary healthcare centers.
Yes.
Nigerians are asking for evidence. Let's see, perhaps a media tour of these health centers.
Absolutely.
You know, that have been refurbished.
Absolutely. The minister will be glad to do that. Party.
Time and again, there are videos coming through about the state of some healthcare centers.
Oh yes, I saw the one that was flooded in Kebbi. But remember that Kebbi usually Kebbi is where you find the biggest, if you like, I don't know where they call it, estuary, whatever, of the River Niger. River Niger that's coming from Senegal is in Kebbi State on this side and Kwara State on this side, that it is the widest. And so every year it tends to overflow and flood, and I think that's what happens.
Perhaps you get more.
So it can be 100%, but we are doing
perhaps we get more time to talk about that. But I'm sure Kayode has questions for you from our Lagos studio. Kayode, over to you.
Well, thank you, Bukola. Well, Dr. Fasua, when Dr. Yemi Kale was saying, assuming that figure is correct, it could well be saying that the 89 million may be an underestimation. It could actually be more, just to put that in mind. But let's take a look at our trajectory. 2015, thereabouts, our inflation was about 10%. And the APC government came, the Buhari government, first for 8 years, took it all the way to 22%. President Tinubu came, made that announcement, took it all the way to 30+%, 34%, up until last year. Then the rebasing was done, and that brought it back to 24.5%. So that is where we're at, or that is the trajectory. Even where we're at today is nothing close to where we're coming from. And that's why the World Bank last year said that, you know what, the poverty figure has been exacerbated, not only as a result of COVID-19, inflation and the rest. And in fact, the projection is at 129 million. So that's higher than the 40%, that's about 56%. And those are figures multidimensionally. The NBS, our NBS puts it at 133 million Nigerians. So these are figures that we can work with. But I want to speak to something you said. So assuming we're looking at 129 million, we're looking at 133 million, or we're looking at 89 million, where you've added the poverty clock, 71 million. I mean, these are huge numbers. What percentage of this poor, because I imagine government is looking at the figures, what percentage is as a result of people's personal decisions? Because I know you referenced that. What percentage is as a result of governments failing in ensuring that the levers are right to help people climb out of poverty?
Well, thank you very much. Okay, you mentioned the issue of multidimensional poverty. You also mentioned the issue of inflation. Then you closed with, what percentage is people's decision and all of that. So fair enough. Let me take that multidimensional first. The report that people quote often, which has actually now been weaponized, it's a 2022 report of the Bureau for Statistics, which says that there are 133 million people who are multidimensionally poor. People like to use that multidimensional because the word sounds very big, and so it sounds very serious, even more important than abject poverty. It must be said, abject poverty, food poverty are the real serious issues. Multidimensional poverty is what they call non-income poverty, which measures how people are distant from some infrastructure. And we have just said there that, look, there's a lot of investment on infrastructure, which many people, including political opposition leaders, would say that, oh, why is the government spending on roads and bridges, and what's the point? Someone says the state governments are building bridges. So why not build bridges? Because one of the things, of course, we know that there's a tendency that infrastructure projects embed some form of corruption. But is it better for us to share money and the money disappears as people go to eat food and so on? Or is it better to build infrastructure that will last for a long period of time? So a 2022 report should no longer be quoted, but then again, it's back to the Bureau for Statistics. I think that a report like the multidimensional poverty report should be funded and should be done every 6 months, if not done every year, if not done even more frequent than that. Because for every spend on infrastructure, I mentioned Nembe Brass Road, I mentioned there are all sorts of other things that's going on, even the Lagos Calabar and Lagos Maiduguri and Lagos Sokoto Expressway. These are things that will open up the economy, open up the blue economy, new developments going on. People are being paid for working in those places. So to a large extent, I would think that if we redid the multidimensional poverty today, perhaps we will see that maybe 10 or 20 million or more people have been taken out of multidimensional poverty as a result of the investment in infrastructure. Full stop, QED. There's no other way to impact the multidimensional poverty than to invest in infrastructure. You mentioned inflation. So inflation, of course, look, post-COVID, countries around the world, including very big countries, saw inflation that they had never seen since Second World War. That is what reported as 34% in this country before rebasing to 24%, because we then had to do what we needed to do. A rebasing that was overdue for 6 years was done. But in countries like the UK, like the US, they saw inflation at 11-12% before it started heading down. Our inflation is also heading down. By the next inflation, by God's grace, is going to be sub 20. And as we go into next year, we're going to see that inflation heading into single digit. Ghana had inflation up to 50%. Now they're looking at a single digit because they were a bit ahead of us in terms of the impact. They saw the impact ahead of us. And so, in fact, the truth is that inflation, what goes up must come down, because people cannot keep increasing prices every time and all that. There are reasons that are peculiar to Nigeria why our inflation was a little bit sticky. People try to take advantage. People not seeing themselves as Nigerians. People having this selfish intent and say, look, I'm first of all myself, I'm first of all my tribe before I'm Nigeria. And so because of that, they use that in pricing things just because they can, especially on things that are very essential. However, they will not continue forever. Just this morning, I was reading Nairametrics report about food prices in Abuja. They did their research. Food prices are dropping everywhere, in Abuja, in Lagos, and all of that. And we are recording this. And again, like I said, we know that many people will not speak on our behalf. But we are also very adept now at getting the data, understanding the power of data, investing in data, and also pushing out this narrative. So yes, people are going to take their own decisions, but the government is doing the right thing. Nigerians wanted a serious government. Now Nigeria has a serious government. In the person of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has done the needful, the very critical reforms that is required to reposition a country for the long term.
Let's not forget that 22% is still a far cry from the 10%-ish that we were in 2015. And that's even before COVID, when it was rising in that sense. But I want you to speak to the question I asked about. So you talked about personal choice, and I think it's a part of the conversation that we don't talk about as much. It's also important. And I want you to speak to the percentage. From your own observation, what percentage of this poverty is as a result of people's choices? And what percentage is as a result of governments failing in terms of ensuring the levers are right for them to climb out of poverty? And I don't know which figure you're going with. Is it 71 million of the World Poverty Clock, the World Bank's projection? I don't know which one you're going with, but that question, I'd like you to speak to it as we wind down.
It's difficult to put a percentage on it, but we can have a very nice intellectual discussion on that. I probably will, first of all, I'll go with World Poverty Club because it's a metric that I've followed over time. And, surprisingly, because this has come to, attention again, I see that about 5-6 million people have disappeared from poverty on the World Poverty Index in Nigeria. That's very remarkable. I will bank that gain. But in terms of, in terms of knowing what percentage is as a result of government failures over time, one of the critical things that Yemi Kale said, which was actually the meat of his discussion, was that if the kind of reforms we're seeing in the last 2 years had been done much earlier, we would have probably taken more people out of poverty and will not be where we are. Again, even the India that we speak about, for those who do research, just go online and do some research about how India managed to remove 80 million people in 1 month out of poverty. It was a bit of data manipulation, which they sold to the World Bank. World Bank resisted initially, but they had to take it. I can tell you, like Yemi Kale has also said, there are a lot more poor people in India, even in China, than there are in Nigeria. But again, unfortunately for us, we have not been very smart. A lot of us, we Nigerians, are the ones that put all the negative information out there on our country. If something happens, they say Nigeria has happened to them, because Nigeria has not been associated with everything bad. You go to US, where 50,000 people have been shot this year, but if they give you a visa today, everybody scrams and takes off from this country. It cannot continue to be so. Unfortunately, this is also eating into the new age, artificial intelligence. Most of your research that you do on it on artificial intelligence on Nigeria will be negative because it's garbage in, garbage out. It is what Nigerians put up that the artificial intelligence will pick up and report back all over the world about this country. So, look, I am in the vanguard of pushing back against many of these things, and I'm fearless about it. Let's put our correct, first of all, let's invest in our data properly. Let's also push up what is correct about this country and what is positive, because we must not be defined by negativity in this country. And then that then defines the future, is the best way, is the best gift we can give to our children unborn. So I would probably say about 20, 30, 40% of that 71 million is due to people's historical, I'll put it at 40%, due to historical reasons, due to people's personal decisions, influence of religion sometimes, that is when people misinterpret religion, issues of even our civil war that has happened, issues of tribalism. Those things are also part of the makeup of the poverty numbers. Put it at 40%, 50%. The rest is governance failure over many years, over many decades. But again, who are the people in government? People in government today, the leader today was a follower yesterday. Those who are in government today were civilians yesterday. So it's the same Nigerians that are running Nigeria. So I think that, however, what we are seeing now is a break, a tectonic shift from what we've always had into something a bit more serious, repositioning this country's economy. And when the economy is properly well positioned, of course, not everybody is going to be rich. That people should get that out of their mind. It's not possible. It's not done. Even in biblical times, they said that the poor will always live amongst you. Even in Quranic time, the same thing. So it's not going to be possible. You go to all the countries in Europe, you see people sleeping on the streets, even much more than they do in Nigeria. But this time around, with what's going on and with the help of God, I believe that we can reposition this economy for majority of people who have been poor to be lifted out of poverty, for those who are willing. I mean, someone who is maybe an alcoholic who's sitting in the bus stop today will also complain about how Nigeria has happened to him. But you see, if they could leave some of those habits, but it's not going to be possible for everybody to leave those habits that they have. But the government is continuing to do what it needs to do on humanitarian issues, on infrastructure, on repositioning trade, on repositioning manufacturing, and what have you. All
right. So many things have come through from your response to Kaldi's question, but I'll try to prioritize the most important things. You talked about food prices dropping every day in Lagos, in Abuja, but I would also like to remind the administration that the reforms at the beginning have actually made Nigerians poorer, because when you consider what a dollar could do in 2022 as against what a dollar can do now, the devaluation of the naira, there's a world of difference, because some would even argue that the average middle class has been eliminated as a result of that. That's on the one hand. While we await accurate data on, multidimensional poverty and poverty below the, poverty line, What can you say to Nigerians about the commitment of this administration to take certain number out of poverty and the timeline? If you can also attach a timeline to it. Are you taking 10 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 2 years before the end of the first tenure of this administration?
Well, I think I'll try to be a bit more optimistic. I think that, in fact, let me tell you what, anybody can do this. If you probably put it on artificial intelligence, any platform you use, maybe Gemini, ChatGPT is a little bit weak, Grok is weak, if you ask me, but then there are more sophisticated tools out there. If you put it there that, given Nigeria's infrastructure focus, how many people can be taken out of multidimensional poverty? When I did it, it told me about 60 to 70 million people will be taken out if Nigeria concentrates on infrastructure building over 10 years. So take the 10 years from 2 years of this government into 10 years. Maybe, we keep talking about 2030, 2031. That's the case maybe, about 70 million can be taken out of poverty. If we focus on infrastructure, build infrastructure, reposition our infrastructure, including housing for the poor, and there's a lot going on in the issue of housing.
70 million.
No. Well, I'm giving you a scientific statement that can be found in spite of all the negativity that Nigerians put on social media and everywhere else, and artificial intelligence. I'm giving you what AI is telling me right now. And look,
so
people are better start thinking. However, the commitment I would say is that, look, if we don't meet that kind of number, I believe that we should be able to shoot for about 30 million people taken out of multidimensional poverty. In fact, I'm saying that right now, if MBS redid that multidimensional plan, I would urge government, my superiors, to please fund it. Fund this report. We don't have to wait for foreigners to come and fund all these reports for us. Fund this report. And look, let's look at how many people have been impacted by all of this infrastructure build. The people in Nembe and Bras, the people in parts of Taraba, people everywhere in this country. For all this infrastructure we're talking about, the health sector reforms and all of these things, about 61 projects are going on in tertiary institutions, tertiary health institutions in this country. If we did it already, I say that people have already been impacted, even if it was 10 million. Let's just report that it is now 120 million people that are in multidimensional and not 133 million. And let's seize that narrative and seize that data and be able to be the ones announcing ourselves every year or every quarter, as the case may be, that 200,000 people have been taken out of out of poverty, whether multidimensional or otherwise. So I would probably say that if we don't meet that 60, 70, let's look at 30 million and so on. But I think that would be a great achievement, and we can hype it ourselves. But one thing that's very important, the most important thing, is that if we are able to seize hold of that narrative, then it will be that we are expecting positives into the future and not negatives. Where we are right now, looking at a 2022 data, everybody is projecting that things will be worse. Why would things be worse when we've done what is important? And like Mr. President said, the worst is over. I mean, these are things I've always said on this show and elsewhere, but luckily now we're hearing it direct from the horse's mouth. Mr. President said, the worst is over. You cannot do the kind of reforms on FX twice. It has been done once, it has been done. Rather than 1,900 where it was, now we're talking about 1,480. Naira is strengthening, even though
which is unable to do what it could do 2 years ago.
Certainly, however, it's doing more on the other side because it's encouraging exports of manufactured goods from Nigeria. Again, 67% year on year, 173% quarter to quarter. That is part of the push. It's there in economics. It is there. It's called the Marshall-Lerner condition. That if your exports are price elastic, as some of those manufacturers and some of those commodities are, then if you depreciate your currency or devalue your currency, you're going to gain. And that's exactly what's going on. And because we still have the purchasing power parity advantage, we are still able to do a whole lot with the Naira beyond the dollar. So we're not running a dollar economy, we're running a Naira economy. However, the depreciation of the Naira where it is has encouraged exportation out of this country, and it's repositioning many companies.
But the question is how national that is an outlook for people below the rung of the ladder.
I understand.
But we want to get there. At this point.
Just 1 second. Well, I'm not really a fan of trickle-down economics, okay? I'm really not a fan. I'm not going to say that people should just wait until it gets to them. I'm saying that don't wait until it gets to you. Reposition. Move around. Use that bridge and that road that has been built. Relocate. Do what you have to do. Be responsible. and stop being negative, because this country is one of the best in the world. You know, it's not the worst place to be.
We must
anchor people are thriving in this country. Thank you very much for the
at this point. Dr. Tope Fasua is the Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Economic Affairs. Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And there's more to come on the program. We'll look at weather predictions as against the planned release of water in some northern states and the impact that will have on those states, particularly those in coastal areas. So stay with us for this next one coming after the break. We'll be right back.